They didn't pull away, they recalibrated. Same silence, same distance, different reason. And you felt it as rejection, as strategy, as something personal, when it wasn't even about you. Or maybe it was, just not in the way you think. From the outside, INFJ and INTJ distance looks identical. No messages, no explanation, no emotional leakage, just absence. And people say the same thing every time. They're cold. They're done. They don't care. But that assumption is where the misread begins. Because distance, for these two, is not emptiness. It's movement. Just in opposite directions. Let's fracture the illusion. INFJ distance is not withdrawal. It's containment. INTJ distance is not avoidance. It's alignment. Same door closing, different reason for the lock. And if you don't understand which one you're facing, you will respond incorrectly. You will push when you should pause. You will wait when you should recalibrate. And the gap will widen silently. When an INFJ creates distance, something already overflowed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly, over time. 1,000 small emotional calculations. What you needed, what they gave, what was never reciprocated. INFJs don't pull away at the first wound. They absorb, they translate, they contextualize. They tell themselves, it's fine. They didn't mean it. I can carry this, until they can't. And when the distance appears, it's not punishment, it's preservation. FE doesn't disappear, it retreats. NI has already seen the ending, the emotional arc, the inevitable depletion, so the INFJ steps back, not to hurt you, but to stop bleeding quietly. Here's the destabilizing part. INFJ distance often still contains care. They still think about you, still feel you, still track your emotional weather. They just stop offering themselves as shelter. Same silence, still attachment, just no access. If you felt the warmth disappear before the distance, you were already too late. INTJ distance does not begin with pain. It begins with data. Something stopped working, efficiency dropped, misalignment appeared, not emotionally, structurally. INTJs don't retreat to protect their feelings. They retreat to protect the system. TE asks, is this effective? Is this sustainable? Is this producing the outcome it should? NI already mapped the trajectory, and the conclusion wasn't emotional, it was inevitable. So distance becomes a decision. Clean, unsentimental, final, even if not hostile. Here's the destabilizing part. INTJ distance often looks cruel because it lacks emotional signaling. No softening, no reassurance, no transitional warmth, just removal. Not because they don't feel, but because feeling was not the variable that mattered. If the shift felt sudden, it wasn't. You just weren't included in the calculation. Now here's where it breaks. INFJ sees INTJ distance and thinks, they don't care anymore. INTJ sees INFJ distance and thinks, they're being emotional. This is inefficient. Both are wrong, and both are responding to projections, not reality. INFJ assumes emotional detachment. INTJ assumes emotional excess. But what's actually happening is incompatible logic running in parallel silence. Same behavior, different internal language. This is where Jungian mechanics matter, but only partially. INFJ. FE scans relational harmony. NI compresses emotional futures. When distance appears, it's because the emotional cost has crossed an invisible threshold. INTJ. TE optimizes external systems. NI compresses strategic outcomes. When distance appears, it's because the structure no longer justifies the investment. Notice the difference. INFJ distance asks, "Is this hurting me?" INTJ distance asks, "Is this working?" Pain versus performance. Safety versus scalability. Neither is wrong, but they are never the same. Trying to fix an INFJ with logic feels like dismissal. Trying to fix an INTJ with emotion feels like interference. This is why INFJ-INTJ dynamics fracture so quietly. INFJ waits for emotional acknowledgement. INTJ waits for structural adjustment. INFJ interprets silence as coldness. INTJ interprets emotional cues as noise. And both retreat further, thinking they're being reasonable. Distance multiplies, meaning evaporates. And eventually, no one knows how it started. Here's the part most people miss. INFJ distance can soften if safety is restored. INTJ distance rarely does, unless the system is redesigned. INFJ might return quietly, testing, feeling. INTJ might never return, even if there's no anger left. Not because they don't care, but because returning would violate the logic that made them leave. Same door, different locks. Sometimes distance isn't rejection, it's accuracy. Sometimes silence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. And sometimes, you weren't pushed away. You just arrived too late to the conclusion that was already made.